Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the live Q&A event for the Village of Potsdam's DRI, or Downtown Revitalization Initiative. My name is Erica Tazer with Environmental Design and Research. Tonight, I'm going to be moderating this virtual live Q&A event on GoToWebinar, and I'll help field questions that you may have throughout the presentation. Thank you for attending. Can you switch slide, Jackie?
Sure.
Before we begin tonight's session, I wanted to go over a few technical details. If you're hearing this now, you should have had success in logging in to the virtual public meeting through GoToWebinar. If you do accidentally fall off the call, there's information on how to log on again, and it's available here on the slide, as well on the project website, which is potsdamdri.com/meetings. This information session is planned to be 2 hours long, and we will break for a Q&A afterwards. A recording of the presentation will be posted online after this meeting sometime within the upcoming week. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode, and your lines have been muted. However, you're still going to be able to post questions at the end of the presentation or at any point throughout the presentation. And we'll show you how to do that on the next slide. We'll be taking questions, and the questions will be written down in the portal. And like I was saying, we will have both the recording of the presentation as well as the full list of questions posted later on in the project website. And again, the address for that web page is potsdamdri.com, and we have a web page devoted to feedback. So it's potsdamdri.com/feedback, where you can find the Q&A report after the session. You can also submit questions to us via the website if you think of something after the presentation tonight. Next slide, please. Should you require technical assistance, please reach out to the LogMeIn software directly, otherwise known as GoToWebinar. On the screen, we've listed a couple of different ways to do that. I suggest you write down this information in case you need it later. However, there is also a handout that is available on your GoToWebinar launcher that you have on your computer device. So you can access it through their website. There's also a toll-free phone number that you can call if you're having internet issues that's preventing you access. The number for that is 833-851-8340. And finally, don't forget that there will be a full recording of this presentation tonight, and a list of the Q&A will be posted on the project website. Additional questions can come in through the comment page if you think of something after the session tonight. And again, thank you so much for joining us. And at this time, I'm going to turn it back to Jackie Hakes of MJ Engineering, who will be opening up the presentation and introducing the DRI project.
Thank you, Erica. All right, I am Jackie Hakes from MJ Engineering. I'm the project manager for the Potsdam DRI, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce your local planning committee co-chairs, President Kristen Estenberg and Mayor Ron Tischler, to provide a welcome for us this evening.
Why don't I start? Welcome to all of you who are participating remotely. We're really thrilled to be here tonight to answer any questions you have about the DRI process and the proposed slate of projects. I can say that I personally am thrilled to be at this point of the process. We've been working very hard as a committee, and we're really eager to answer questions and get feedback. So welcome again. And with that, let me turn it over to Mayor Tischler for his welcome.
Okay, thank you. I also would like to welcome all those who are involved in this presentation. Our deep, heartfelt thanks to our engineering firm and all our consultants in Albany, in the state. And we welcome all of your comments, questions, and we're eager to move forward with the project. I think it'll be a great thing for the village of Potsdam. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both very much. So this is Jackie again, and I will be taking you through about a 10 to 15 minute overview presentation. The intention of this presentation is to reacquaint everybody with who is involved in this Potsdam DRI effort, the DRI program itself, what has been completed to date, as well as what remains to be done. It has been a little bit of time since we've had an engagement with the community, and so we thought it would be important to share some highlights. First of all, I'd like to reintroduce your local planning committee, or LPC. There are 16 members of the local planning committee, including the 2 co-chairs that you just heard from. And the local planning committee is representative of a variety of community organizations, different perspectives in the community, varying groups within the community. And they are really tasked with guiding this effort and ultimately selecting the slate of projects that will be recommended to the state for DRI funding. In addition to the LPC, we have a series of state partners that provide key technical resources for the LPC, as well as our consultant team throughout this process. Joining us this evening as part of the panel for the live Q&A are Barbara Kendall and Leslie Zlotov from the Department of State. In addition, Steve Hunt from Empire State Development and Mary Bartholomew from New York State Homes and Community Renewal are also joining us. Those not able to join us this evening, but are an important part of the state partner team, Seth Belt from the Governor's Office as the North Country Regional Representative, and Buck Bobbin from the Department of Labor. In addition, the LPC has a series of non-voting members which provide critical resources and support throughout this effort. From your village, Greg Thompson is the village administrator and Fred Hans as your director of planning and development in the village. Additionally, Jason from the St. Lawrence County Planning Office and Patrick from the St. Lawrence County IDA also provide assistance throughout this effort for the LPC. And then supporting all of those that are involved in this is our consultant team, MJ Engineering. We are leading the team, but we are supported by a series of key colleagues throughout this. You've heard from Erica from EDR. Also on our team, EM Pemrick and Company, CLA Site, Captain Consultants, and Lacey Thaler, Riley, and Wilson. And we are tasked with providing the technical reviews of the proposed projects, as well as assisting the LPC as they go through this effort. As a brief reminder for those of you that have not been engaged in a while with this program, the DRI program, or the Downtown Revitalization Initiative program, allocates $10 million statewide through round 4, which we are currently in round 4 of the DRI program. And that is allocated evenly among the 10 regional economic development councils. Each DRI community in round 4 must provide and prepare a strategic investment plan and identify how they are recommending and proposing to have the DRI funds distributed within the DRI study area. And so that is included through a slate of projects recommended for DRI. In addition to the strategic investment plan DRI recommended projects, the LPC can identify, with assistance from the community, other projects that, while they might not be DRI recommended projects, are important to the revitalization of your downtown. The key program components for the DRI program include a vision, goals and strategies to achieve that vision, downtown profile and assessment, which is essentially the existing conditions within your downtown, as well as an identification of opportunities and challenges. That priority projects list, which is that slate of recommended projects for the DRI, the strategic investment plan, and community engagement. Community engagement is a critical component of the DRI program. Within the DRI program, there are 4 different project categories. So a proposed project can fall within any one of these 4 categories. public improvements, private rehabilitation, renovation, and new development projects, revolving loans and grants, branding and marketing. For projects to be critical DRI projects or to highlight themselves as priority projects, they need to demonstrate that they can leverage other funding sources so that the DRI can take a project and take those resources that are already being invested into that project and take it further. The projects are intended to be catalytic for other redevelopment and revitalization within the downtown area. And the projects are intended to be those that are ready to go, ready to hit the ground running should they be awarded DRI funding. It has been a little while since we have been together, as I have mentioned. The DRI schedule is intended to be quick and concise. We initiated this project with all of you back in December, and we're on a fairly quick schedule and pace up through March. And of course, when the COVID pause occurred, everybody, including the program, was put on pause for a time. We have recently, in the month of August, been able to re-engage with the local planning committee, re-engage with the project sponsors, and here we are. The LPC has identified a draft slate of projects to recommend for DRI, and is providing that to you as the community to gather input and feedback about your level of support as a community for the slate of projects. It is the intent that the LPC this month will be voting on a final slate of projects that will be incorporated into the strategic investment plan, and that will be finalized this month of September. As a quick reminder, we thought we would walk through some of the activities, particularly the engagement activities that have already occurred. If you may recall, back in January, over 80 of you community members were able to join us for our first public open house to kick off the project. It was a really wonderful event and a lot of energy in the room. We also were able to conduct an online community survey in January and February. Over 950 responses were received for that survey. A second public open house occurred in early March, and over 50 people joined us for that event. In addition, we reached out to students and other demographics within the community, pop-up tables at Clarkson University in SUNY Potsdam, a middle school engagement day, as well as an online student survey for which we received over 400 responses. And we are continuing to have engagement. This third and final round of community engagement began on Friday, August 28th and continues through September 4th. I'm just going to walk through some of the opportunities that you have to participate during this week-long session. First is an online project gallery. This is a web-based project gallery, which essentially provides a virtual tour of proposed projects through an ArcGIS story map. You can access this through the potsdamdri.com website. And there is a comment form, a comment feedback form right on the website that you can provide comments. And we have received a substantial amount of comments so far. And so we thank you for taking the time to do that. You can also submit comments to the project email or on a comment card that is available at Village Hall. We also, as an alternative to the project gallery, have storefront gallery posters. And we'd like to thank Jernabe Coffee House and the Potsdam Chamber of Commerce for offering their storefront windows to post the slate of projects that is currently being considered by the LPC. Of course, we have this live Q&A session that is occurring right now. And I do want to point out all of our panelists today include your LPC co-chairs, those state team members that I had identified, as well as myself and Sarah Stark from MJ Engineering. And now let's get to the projects. Back in January, your LPC identified a call for projects and asked for folks to provide recommended projects. 47 projects were received. Total project cost totaled over $46 million, and the preliminary DRI request was $26.2 million. This was a substantial response in terms of projects within your community. The LPC was then tasked with evaluating all of these with help from state partners and our consultant team. And what they have done as of August 25th, this is what is currently on the draft slate of projects that the LPC is considering for DRI funding. There are now 15 projects. The total project cost is just over $22 million, and the DRI request is at $14.7 million. And I should point out that while the community has $9.7 million for DRI funding, the state does encourage communities to identify between $12 and $16 million worth of funding, worth of recommended DRI projects. The breakdown, if you recall those 4 project categories that I did mention earlier, the breakdown of this current draft list of projects is this. Approximately 52% of the DRI funding request is for public improvement projects. 42% is for new development, rehabilitation, renovation projects. 5% is for revolving loan and grant fund, and 1% is for branding and marketing. Well, I'm not going into detail of each and every project this evening. That information is available on the online gallery at potsdamdri.com, as well as in the storefront galleries. And there are hard copies of these materials available at Village Hall as well. But I'm just going to list the projects quickly so that we can identify this slate of projects that the LPC is currently considering. The Downtown Riverwalk, the Downtown Streetscape Project, St. Lawrence Whitewater Park, Fall Island Skate Park and Art Park, Rebuild Downtown Potsdam, that is the revolving loan and grant fund project proposed, Downtown Branding Campaign, the North Country Children's Museum, the Potsdam Food Co-op relocation, the Sandstone, Market Square Mall renovations, Roxy Theater alterations, 59 Market Street improvements, upgrades to the Clarkson Inn, the North Country Arts Center, and Damon Hall renovations. Again, total DRI request with this slate of projects is at $14.7 million. So moving on to what remains to be done in terms of next steps. As Erica mentioned earlier, we will be posting this recording of this Q&A session to the project website. We will be providing a list of the questions and responses to the website as well. Moving on, this public engagement session is open until Friday, September 4th. So we encourage you to continue reviewing the online project gallery, the storefront posters, and sharing your feedback and thoughts with us. And then ultimately, there is a meeting scheduled on Wednesday, September 9th. It is the 6th LPC meeting. And it is the intention, or we anticipate at that meeting, that the LPC will be voting on a slate of projects to recommend for DRI. And that will incorporate the review and evaluation that the LPC have been conducting throughout this process, as well as the additional public feedback that we get. You can stream the LPC meeting live on YouTube. And if you go to potsdamdri.com, it'll take you directly to the live stream on September 9th. With that, we would encourage you, even past this evening, to email comments to potsdamdri@mjels.com or visit the project website, leave a comment in the comment form at www.potsdamdri.com. With that, that is all I have for the presentation. Let's get directly to the Q&A. Erica, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I just wanted to remind everyone that there is the questions portal through your GoToWebinar app that is on your phone. If you are on this call, you have a GoToWebinar app installed automatically on your phone or your computer device. And in that portal, there's a questions portion where you can type in a question and it will go right to us. So we'll get it in the queue and we'll be discussing it here in our live Q&A. So we're going to start with a couple of frequently asked questions that are commonly received from audiences at the stage of the DRI process. And the first question of that, to kick off our question session, will be about the value of the project. So the question is, why is there $14.6 million worth of projects when the village only received $9.7 million? And that question, we'll send that to Kristen, if that's okay, and then Ron can chime in, or both of you.
Sure, I can begin. Actually, the state recommends that the local planning committee select between $12 and $16 million worth of projects to be recommended for DRI funding, so that if some projects advance outside of DRI or a project sponsor for some reason isn't able to move forward, there are still $9.7 million worth of projects. We want to make sure that we have the ability to take advantage of every single dollar that the state is giving us.
And I can add to that if you'd like. If for some reason we only applied for $9.7 million to start with, and like Kristen said, if your project is unable to move forward or if it's financed elsewhere, we wouldn't be able to receive that full 9.7 million. You know, we'd lose some money on the fact. So better to aim high and then get what we can get of that 9.7.
Great, thanks, Ron. We'll move on to another question here from the list of commonly asked questions. So the question, and I would just want to remind everyone, there is a questions portal on your GoToWebinar app, and if you type in your question there, we'll get it pinged and put it in the queue of questions for us to go through tonight. So our next question will be about the list of projects. So just speaking generally about the process to determine the list of projects, how did the LPC determine the list? And Jackie, if you want to take that question. Oh, you're on mute.
Got it, sure. I'd be happy to, Erica. Thank you very much. So as I did mention, the LPC issued a call for projects in January of 2020. Over 47 projects were received, and that was a really exciting time for the LPC to see how dedicated the community was to revitalizing your downtown. However, they then had the difficult job of sifting through all of those projects, as I indicated, with help from all of us, the consultant team as well as the state team. The LPC identified 23 different criteria to evaluate these projects, everything ranging from the transformative potential. Does the project contain elements that can fundamentally change downtown and how it's perceived? Project readiness, is it ready to go right now? The catalytic potential, is there the ability of this project to make other things happen should it be implemented? The ability to have a sustainable long-term impact on downtown, the need to have DRI funds to make this project happen, and a variety of things, including public comment. Public comment is also one of those factors, and public feedback and level of support is also one of those factors. Sponsor capacity, the ability to leverage funds, job creation, and the consistency with the DRI goals that the community have identified. All of those things went into narrowing down the list to the 15 that are currently proposed. And the LPC worked really hard through multiple LPC meetings and small group work sessions to get to that list of 15.
Great. So we did have a question come in from the audience. Am I on mute? Can you hear me? Okay, great. We had a question come in from the audience from Susan Powers. Should we rank the projects? Will that be coming along in the process? Should we rank the projects was the question. And it looks like Barbara is going to take that.
Sure, I can take that one. The state recommends that the projects not be ranked. We request that they not be, excuse me, not be ranked. And the reason for that is we'd like to see the full 9.7 million be projects that are really important for your catalytic revival of your community. These are, you know, 9.7 really actually doesn't go that far, and the LPC has worked really hard to whittle down that original 47 million to 15 projects that are all very important for different sectors of the economy in the downtown and the village. So we consider them all to be equally ranked, and then will be considered for funding as part of the plan.
Okay, great. Thanks, Barbara. So our next question is from Devin Sutton. And the question is, what effect will the maintenance of projects like the water park have on local taxes? Is there someone that wants to jump in, or?
I have an initial thought on that, and maybe somebody else could follow up. Maintenance cannot be included as part of the project cost for DRI, but that is a consideration, I believe, when the consultants are looking at these projects, and the local planning committee has, you know, representatives from the village government as well as local organizations that will consider, you know, how heavy a burden maintenance will be. So even though that can't be funded by the DRI, it's considered in the discussion about these projects. Did anybody else have a thought about that? You're muted.
I can follow up as well. And then perhaps the village may want to weigh in from the local tax revenue or tax burden perspective. But as Barbara had indicated, one of the things we do look at is the capacity of a project sponsor, regardless of whether or not it's a public project sponsor, nonprofit project sponsor, private developer as a project sponsor. We look at the capacity to actually implement the project, not just the construction phase, but the sustainability of that project long term. And so that is part of that series of criteria that the LPC considers very strongly as they go through this evaluation process.
I could add to that. You know, basically the village is responsible for the taxes. It would not fall into the shoulders of the taxpayers.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the next question then, which comes from this also comes from Susan Powers. Regarding the streetscape project, it seems essential to me to reduce traffic on Market Street from Elm to Main. It was not clear in the description if Route 56 would be rerouted to Elm and Park, and the number of lanes that on that block of Market Street would be reduced. Please clarify the plan for traffic on that block. And Jackie, you want to take that question?
Sure, I can start with that, and then you know, the village may want to add to that, because I know this is a project they have been working on for quite some time. The streetscape improvement project is not looking to relocate, realign, or reduce lanes. Part of the roadway is a truck route, and there are considerations to be made for that, as well as coordination with the Department of Transportation. the intent of the streetscape project is to slow traffic, traffic calming, but also to enhance the experience of motorists as well as pedestrians within the downtown area. So to really enhance that pedestrian environment and make it more convenient for pedestrians and cyclists that are commuting to and from or within your downtown, and to just really create a much more vibrant street environment, streetscape environment. And so that's what the intent of the streetscape enhancements are. And when you look at that project with some of the other projects, particularly the public projects within this area, such as the Riverwalk, it really creates a seamless opportunity for pedestrians and connects into some of these other projects that are happening.
Yes, I think at this point, there are no plans to reroute or to reduce Route 56 as it is a state highway. I think Jackie hit it right on the head. It's an enhancement. You know, it's aesthetics. It's something to bring people downtown, pedestrians and out-of-town visitors, to make Potsdam a more vibrant and exciting place to visit.
Okay, great. The next question comes from Rebecca Weld. If a project feels the need to adjust their scope given the limitations of a post-COVID society or for some other reason, what mechanism is there for that at this point? And it looks like Steve Hunt will take that question.
You're muted.
Oh, I can unmute him. Okay,
Can you hear
there
me?
you go. Yeah.
Okay, great. So the consultants have been working closely with project sponsors right through the COVID situation, and the slate of projects that's presented is has been confirmed by the sponsors that those projects are set to go forward. Should an issue arise, because they always do, perhaps a project doesn't has another way to fund itself, be funded, then or the project scope is reduced or something like that, the state agency that's working or that provides the award to the project would then work with the project sponsor. However, that said, awards are based upon the project scope. So, you know, there may be a reduction in an award or something like that, depending on what exactly the change would be, or altogether, you know, forgiveness of the award if the project is not really in context with how it was presented originally.
Okay.
Erica, if I could add something briefly to that. Steve, thank you. That was a great response to that. And I do just want to point out that there have been some project sponsors that have modified their scope slightly as a result of COVID, and what you are seeing as this proposed slate reflects that.
Yeah.
And
Oh, Barbara, were you going to add something? You might be having some audio issues. I'm not sure.
no, well, I thought somebody else was speaking, so I stopped. But
Oh,
I was just going to say, not sure if this is the right place to add it, but sort of an add-on to your question about the COVID-19 situation is that the downtown fund project, the state allowed that to be increased from 600,000 to 750,000. All the other DRIs, 1, 2, and 3, we capped that at 600,000. But now we are allowing it to be increased to 750, and we're encouraging the community to put in the guidelines for that downtown fund that a business can apply for COVID-related improvements, you know, such as seating outside or other, you know, improvements, you know, plexiglass shields or making sure that people aren't too close together in their business. And maybe other people on the panel might have some other thoughts about this, but that's one way that we wanted to allow communities to incorporate sensitivity to COVID-19 in the plan.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. I wasn't thinking of the question from that perspective. That's really good insight.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. The next question is from Susan Powers. The water park seems excessively expensive. Do you know the breakdown between the in-water aspects and the on-land aspects? Would there be any value in decoupling those two to reduce the costs? And Jackie is going to take it first, and
Sure.
maybe some others will chime in.
Yes, thank you, Erica. First of all, I think with regard to the Whitewater Park, as a result of discussions with the LPC at the last LPC meeting, the proposed cost that you are seeing now has been reduced, and the scope of the Whitewater Park project has been reduced to the point that it can be and still be a viable project and a viable destination, which it is intended to be within your downtown. With that said, the majority of those costs are by far for the water improvements. The permitting, the level of effort that is needed to create the Whitewater Park itself within the water, that is where the bulk of those of that cost is going, and the bulk of the budget. Sarah, I believe that you have a little more of the breakdown in terms of the on-land costs, which, before I turn it over to you, Sarah, are important to being able to kind of complete this project and complete the overall experience. The intent here, as with the other whitewater parks in the region, is to really become a destination, not only individually, but collectively within the region. So it has a much more regional reach, if you will. But Sarah, do you have the breakdown, or at least a generalized breakdown in terms of the cost for the on-land costs, were those to be phased?
Absolutely. So I'm pulling up the budget here, and it seems that the on-land features account for roughly 5% of the budget. So some of those on-land features include things like a pavilion area and a plaza, a haul-in and takeout paths, just so people are able to access some of these features. And that's roughly $110,000. So it's a very small portion of the project budget.
Our next question is from Alexandra Wilk. Would we potentially shrink this list, the project list, anymore? Or is this list pretty set at this point, barring any major issues that arise? Who would like to take that question and respond to that?
I will take that. I think at this point, there's been so much discussion, so much input from the public, from the LPC, that I think these 15 projects will be presented back to the LPC, at our meeting next week, and we'll move forward from there. At this point, I personally don't anticipate anything dropping off those 15, and obviously that'll be up to the state to make the final determination on those.
Okay.
And just to add to that, Rhonda, the local planning committee will make that call at the meeting next week as well, to decide if that 14.7 is your final list. So that'll be one more opportunity for the local planning committee.
Yeah, correct. That'll be their recommendations to move forward and bring those to the state.
And I would just add in that we will obviously be looking at all the feedback from tonight and anything that comes in on the website between now and that meeting. So there's still plenty of time for feedback if community members want to voice their thoughts about the proposed project list.
Well, along those lines, we have a question from Susan Powers. She says, the mix of projects is great. I'm happy to see job creation, tourism development, and quality of life for residents. The question is, has there been any effort to classify these projects among these benefits to make sure that the recommended set of projects can address the range of benefits that stem from them? So maybe Jackie, do you want to talk about the process that was used to evaluate the projects and kind of the way that the benefits from the projects factor into their consideration?
Sure, Eric, I'd be happy to. As part of that series of criteria that the LPC has been utilizing since January to evaluate the projects, there are criteria related to job growth and retention, impacts on tax revenue, anticipated community economic benefits, all of these things that the participant had identified. Tourism development, quality of life improvements, those are all part of that series of criteria that were evaluated for each project individually. But one of the other things that the LPC also did during their discussions in small work groups and at the full LPC meetings was to talk about how collectively this grouping of projects can address these. So one project might address multiple criteria and another project might address other criteria, but collectively they have the biggest impact and the biggest opportunity to transform your downtown. So yes, each of those things were evaluated and the LPC did consider how they work together, as well as how each individual project meets those criteria. There wasn't necessarily a specific classification within those categories, but it was part of the overall evaluation.
So yeah, just does anyone else want to speak to specifically job creation, tourism development, quality of life for residents as it applies to projects, or is there any specifics that anyone has for that? I know that it was. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next question. So the next question is from Susan Powers. The Market Street between Main and Elm will never live up to its potential if we retain truck traffic. These are all New York State considerations. I think the question is how does DOT relate to this process? And is it considered as a whole system regarding transportation's routes? And it's, yeah, so how can these projects really make a difference if the end result, into the end result that we envision as it relates to the transportation systems? And it's Jackie, I think you're going to take that to start.
I can start with that. I will say that DOT has been a part of the conversation. Early on in the process, we had a series of multi-days worth of stakeholder group discussions at which several representatives from the Department of Transportation did come and speak with us and our team. And we spoke specifically about the streetscape project, as well as the Riverwalk Trail project and other projects where there would be coordination necessary with the Department of Transportation. While it is a truck route, that is a whole nother level of discussion. DOT in our discussions through this process, we're very supportive of the streetscape improvements, at least from the conversations that we have had. Obviously, there will need to be, full design and more coordination should this project advance within the strategic investment plan, and should this project be selected to receive DRI funding. Barbara, I think you might have had something else to add to that.
Yes, and in addition to the consultants, reaching out to DOT and meeting with them, we also at the state level asked for comments from DOT, from Empire State Development, from HCR, from Mary's organization, directly on the projects, and then we circle that back to the consultants as well, kind of just another way to get more information. And the representative from DOT, they provided us information on all the projects. They reviewed the initial information, and they said they want to work really closely with the village when if that project is selected, and then the village has the contract with the state for that project. DOT wants to be very involved. So, coming from both angles, I think it'll be ensured that they're involved.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question then. That question comes from Alexandra Wilk. Can someone walk us through the path that the Riverwalk would take? That would be helpful for people to picture that project in particular. And yeah, does somebody, maybe Sarah, start? Would you like to take that to kind of walk us through? I know it's a bit difficult without pictures here, but maybe you can point people to where those pictures are located.
Can you share that image on the screen? Is that possible?
If you give me a minute, I'm pulling it up. So Sarah, if you want to start talking through that, and
Sure.
Give me a minute, I will pull up that graphic.
A picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. Sure. So while Jackie's pulling that up, I'll kind of talk you through how the Riverwalk will go through the town and the village. So starting at Garner Park, there's already an existing trail that goes through the downtown corridor along through Garner Park and to Market Street. So part of the Riverwalk project will be to include little trail markers throughout the downtown to let you know that you're still on the Riverwalk. So this is utilizing existing trails that have already been created. So the Riverwalk will then go down to the Maple Main Market intersection and go west towards the proposed skate park and Fall Island. This is again using on-road, oh, there we go. So we have a graphic here. Using existing trails. And then it will cross over the Racket River at the Market Street trailhead. So this is close to the Thai restaurant. And then anyone that walks the trail will be able to go north along that green route that you see on your screen, or continue across the street on the south end of Maple Street towards a pocket park on Pine Street, Sandstone Drive, and Market Street. So if you continue that way, you'll go through the pocket park along a shared use path along Sandstone Drive. This will bring you north across the river and down through a mural walk area near the Market Square Mall. So this will be a shared use path as well, and then it'll come down through and into Garner Park. Now, where you see the intersection of the green trail and the yellow trail, there will be a set of stairs that will take people up onto Sandstone Drive through that, from that West Riverwalk trail. There will also be bike rails along that staircase, so you can very easily transition onto the on-road bike facilities. And then down at the bottom, you'll see a red dotted line, and this is to show the connection of bike routes from the existing Clarkson bike routes into the existing bike routes along Market Street. So these will be new bike lanes that will be added as part of the project. I don't know if anyone from the village would like to add to that.
Fred Hans. The bicycle lane, if you see on Maple Street where you see the letter E, one of the things that we've discovered when we started talking to the landscape architects was that there appears to be enough lane width on Maple to put some real designated shared bike lanes on that roadway. As you remember, several years ago when we did the bridge renovation work, the lanes were widened across the bridge. So at this point, we'll be able to link the designated bike lane from Clarkson University's Hill campus on Clarkson Avenue to Maple Street and then to downtown Potsdam. And on the northern side, where it's listed as B, that would be a shared use pathway. So really the idea is to create a multimodal trail that takes you on a route that circumnavigates the river.
And Fred, if I could add to that, earlier we were talking about the streetscape project, and this area over on Market is where that streetscape project would really kind of create that link to the broader Riverwalk project. And then also the Riverwalk project, the way that it is presented here, it does, once you cross Fall Island Park near, I think Sarah had mentioned that the Thai restaurant, and hopefully that is still there, you can connect very easily into the Munter Trail as well. So it connects into several other trails or other trails that are already in place in the community.
And one thing that you had pointed out when this project was being discussed and was that the Riverwalk project and the Streetscape project tie together and are adjacent to a number of the other DRI projects. And that's what we like to see, is it all connecting to become catalytic, projects working together to make a catalytic change in the downtown.
Yeah, Barbara, thank you for pointing that out. Sorry, I stopped sharing screen and I just went back to sharing. Several, and I'll just highlight several of the projects that are currently on the proposed draft list. Market Square Mall. In this area is the Children's Museum, the Arts Center, 59 Market Street. The Fall Island skate park and art park, the Whitewater facility here in this area over here, and then some of the land development areas here. So those are just some of the projects that are currently on the Clarkson Inn renovations over in, where the Clarkson Inn exists now. So those are some of the projects that are currently on the proposed list that do have, together with the Riverwalk Trail, do really create this cluster of investment within your downtown that does have transformative potential.
We had a couple questions come in through the questions portal related to this map. So if Jackie, if you don't mind keeping the map up.
Yeah.
Then I'll just read them off here. So both of these questions were from Maggie McKenna. The first question she had was, why is it that the trail that this trail crosses the street instead of staying on the north sidewalk of Maple Street? So I'll let you take on that question.
Could you repeat that question?
Or actually, I think the two questions are related. So she asked, why is it that this trail crosses the street instead of staying on the north sidewalk of Maple Street? So along the trail of Maple Street.
Sure.
And then she's wondering, will there be a traffic light or an easy way to cross the street, cross Maple Street?
Okay. Thank you, Erica. I now understand. So part of what the intention was in looking at the Riverwalk trail was to utilize existing sidewalk and existing facilities as much as possible, and to connect the gaps, if you will, through this effort. And so there is, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a sidewalk already in existence on that southern part of the street. And so the intention was to create a very visible pedestrian crossing, not signalized, that's not being proposed at this time, but to connect those that might be going to this area, going to the trailhead area that is being proposed, or crossing the street to the Munter Trail. So the intent was to tie into the existing sidewalks and facilities where possible. The other part of that, and we did as part of this process, working with the village and CLA Site, our consultant team member who was looking at this very closely, did look at sidewalks on both sides of the street. However, given the number of curb cuts and the location of the utility poles, it gets a little more complicated and costly. And so the thought was, let's try to make this connection a solid connection, tapping into and connecting into those existing facilities as much as possible. I hope that answers the question.
We had a couple more related to this, Jackie, so keep the map up.
Okay.
So the first question is from Susan Powers. What will the bike route along the Riverwalk on Sandstone Drive look like? The current sidewalk on Sandstone Drive is not currently wide enough for bikes and pedestrians.
I think, bear with me, I don't recall the actual order of these slides, but I can probably. All right, so this lower right-hand corner with the image that is labeled Maple Street Trailhead, if you look and see the letters F and G, the light green or blue, I'm not sure how it's showing up on your image, those are the proposed bike lanes. And so those would be accomplished. They would not be part of the sidewalk. They would be part of the roadway. And the way that that can be accomplished is by adjusting the travel lane width and the shoulder width, working within the existing right-of-way in the existing pavement section.
Okay, we had another related question from Jenna Matthews. Why wouldn't we extend the Riverwalk to go by the murals that already exist by the NCCM and in the alley by the tile company?
I think at this point, in working with the village, and Fred might have a follow-up to this, but I think the intent was to try and put together a Riverwalk project that really could be a loop project kind of centering around the downtown. And so this is really where we ended up for that. Fred, I don't know if you have more specific response to this question.
So a couple of points. One of them is that we do have a Riverwalk proposed for the section of the trail that goes by Market Square Mall. And that ought to be a very interesting installation. You can see an image there. But once the trail hits the Racket River at Garner Park, it's going to turn east and head up Raymond Street. So it'll go past the North Country Children's Museum, It'll go past the community coloring mural that they did on North Country Auto Parts this last summer. That's pretty cool. And it will go past the tile company. So people will be able to see the mural work that's been done in the alley, although we didn't want to take people down a back alley in Potsdam. We didn't think that would be a particularly good walking route for people, given the fact that there are a lot of other things that are going on there. You know, the loading docks and dumpsters and all kinds of other things happening there. But taking people down Raymond Street was the better alternative.
Okay, I think that concludes the questions up to this point about the trail and the Riverwalk. We have another question. It might be handy to keep the slides up, actually, Jackie, about public input. So the question comes from Rebecca Weld. Will the public see or get a sense of the public feedback that is happening now? So I don't know if you have a slide with the links to the webpage.
Oh, not in this presentation. in another one. I can just speak to that though. After September 4th, our team, and in fact, we've already started compiling all of the comments that have been coming in, and we are compiling them both individually as they come in, the full comments, so that that is available. But we're also tracking the level of support by each of the projects that are currently on the draft list to be recommended for DRI. That information will be provided to the LPC in advance of their meeting on the 9th, and will also be shared during that meeting on the 9th. That information will also be made available on the project website, which is www.potsdamdri.com. There is a tab for meetings and past PowerPoint presentations, recordings, since we've been having the web-based meetings with the LPC. All of those are available on the potsdamdri.com website as well. So these items will be made accessible for the public in that manner.
Okay. Another question that came in pertains with the time frame for launching the project. So what is the realistic timetable for a launch of any of the DRI funding for these projects? Are there communities who are slated to receive DRI funding in past years that still have yet to see their funding from the program?
I guess I can start with that one. It's I guess a two-part question. So we don't have a time frame right now for announcing the projects and going to contract. It has varied each year, and it will definitely be a few months, but we don't know exactly when that will happen. And then in terms of other communities, well, actually, another thing that about the first part of the question, it's different depending on each agency. The Department of State contracts for the public projects, ESD for the usually development projects, and HCR for some of the other projects. So each agency has a different contracting time frame, which you guys could talk about in a minute if you want to. But the second part of the question was past DRIs. It has, some of them have gone to contract fairly quickly. Other ones have lagged far behind. And I think it's across the state. It depends on the community. It depends on the project. Sometimes things hold up implementation of a project, say, for example, timing with DOT. If they were going to be redoing a bridge or something else, it might delay a streetscape project. And there might be other factors with a private project. So, you know, we work with the project sponsor to go to contract, but the timing really varies greatly. So Steve or Mary, did you want to mention anything about that?
Yeah, I think you're right about the fact that the award date is unknown at this time, but the process varies for each project depending on what agency they're working with. For ESD, we do a contract. We start the contract process right away with the private sector capital project, and that contract takes some time because we have to gather additional information from the project sponsors. But it can be done in, let's say a few weeks, and then the project actually begins and has to, the project has to actually be completed before an award is issued, or the actual money is dispersed. But in the meantime, we begin working with them right away as soon as the awards are announced.
Okay, I'll go to a question that has to do with Market Square Mall. It's from Alexandra Wilk. I think that the Market Square Mall project is one of the newer additions to the list. Could we please get a brief overview of that one for everyone's benefit?
Sure, I'd be happy to take that, Erica. Can everyone hear me?
Yep, you're on.
Sure. So the Market Square Mall will include exterior and interior renovations. So they will be replacing about 13,000 square feet of roofing. They will also update the siding of the building, add new canopies, as well as some interior renovations, including some public bathrooms. In addition to these, they will be constructing a tower on the southeastern portion of the building that will be visible from many of the public projects, including the Riverwalk project and the Riverwalk project. I think we have a graphic of that available as well in the online project gallery. So the idea was to create a visual landmark and a location for new signage for both existing tenants and potential future tenants.
And our next question that came in is more of a comment, but I can just read it here so that everyone can hear it. It's from Brooks Washburn. She says the public concepts are great. I feel that a 50% max of the budget is fair to maximize the leverage of matching monies and private wage rate construction. One comment on the destination idea, most parking is in private lots. For instance, JREC subs approach. The landscape design will need to put more effort into public parking all around the loop. And I don't know if anybody had anything to add or respond to in light of that comment. If not, I will move on to the next question that came in.
I can add in that as part of the design, it does look like there will be public parking at the proposed pocket park for the Riverwalk Trail, as well as the Maple Street Trailhead.
Thanks, Sarah. Our next question is also related to the Riverwalk. So we may have to pull up that map if it's not clear here. Let me read it. So the question comes from Jenna Matthews, and it's why not complete the loop from C by the existing murals and connect with the start of the orange and purple dotted lines? So the follow-up question is why not connect the loop from point C on that map? So we may want to share the map just for everyone's reference.
Yes, Erica, I can go ahead and share that map right now. Hopefully everybody is seeing that. That's a great question. And I believe if I'm understanding it, I don't know if anybody can see my cursor, but this area here, the gap that the question was referencing is Garner Park. The Riverwalk Trail project does not include any improvements to Garner Park. So we did not show any of the improvements to Garner Park as part of this project to make sure it was clear and distinct that this is not proposing project improvements to Garner Park. Garner Park, however, has received funding, other state funding for improvements that the village is initiating. And so there are already improvements and there will already be that connection. And so the Riverwalk is basically leading from Garner Park through these other dotted areas, proposed connections that you see. So hopefully that answered that question.
Okay, thanks. We did have another question related to the Riverwalk that just came in.
Erica?
Oh, yes.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Fred wants to jump in on that.
Yeah, we don't show any improvements there, but we do have some design development documents that we've developed with Brooks Washburn, our project architect, and the Chazen companies for Garner Park, and that's work that we're hoping to undertake sometime in the very near future. But if you're interested, we do have that material available for public review and comment.
And I can just remind people that you can comment through the web page and it will get to the project team. So if you wanted to request that, or you can request it here in the questions portal on GoToWebinar. So our next question that related to the Riverwalk, while we have this map up, was from Michael Edgar. Will the sidewalks and the crosswalks be kept up to code in the winter months to have safer access to the DRI projects? So
I can start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then perhaps Mayor, perhaps you and or Fred may want to follow up, but you know, part of these projects and part of looking at these projects and evaluating them is to determine the long-term maintenance and the long-term sustainability of the project. And I think that's really what I'm hearing from that question is the maintenance throughout all seasons, you know, particularly the winter season. And I do know that the village is responsible and does take that responsibility seriously for you know, snow clearance, et cetera, during the winter months. Mayor, I don't know if you wanted to highlight what the village does do in terms of maintenance of pedestrian facilities.
Yes, that's a daily process for our Department of Public Works. Maintenance, I mean, they'll go and they'll plow. We have sidewalk plows, they'll sand, they'll salt if they have to. We don't like to use a lot of salt because it destroys the concrete and the pavement. But that's a daily process. And unless we get with a major snowstorm, it should not be an issue to keep up with it.
Okay. So we had another question about the Riverwalk and a clarification rather. So related to the question that I had asked from Susan Powers related to the Sandstone Drive and the bike lanes. She says her question was really about the shared bike lanes in reference to Sandstone Drive, not Maple Avenue. I'm in total agreement that there is plenty of room on Maple Street for bike lanes. So if there's any further explanation about Sandstone Drive and the bike lanes, shared bike lanes on that portion of the project.
Sure, I can start with that, and thank you for clarifying that. I was definitely not thinking about the shared use path. So I think the question really is about this area B, the yellow dotted line. And so yes, that is intended to be a separate shared use path, and it will be shared with pedestrians and bicyclists, and will meet the minimum requirements to allow for such a shared use path, so that both pedestrians and bicyclists can be on that path together safely. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. So we didn't have any more questions that are coming through the portal. Maybe Sarah, if you want to post one of the prompt questions, okay, that would be great. And then we'll go through a couple of these frequently asked questions just to buy a little more time for all the participants on the call tonight if they think of questions. And then we may wrap it up if there's no questions coming in. So the first
Erica,
question, oh yeah.
Hey, it's Steve. Sorry, just quick correction from earlier. It's been bothering me. I misspoke earlier. I want to make sure it's clear for folks. When we talked about a project scope and if it changed dramatically and it was different from what had been originally proposed, I misspoke and said that the award would be forgiven, and what I meant would be forfeited. So I just want to make sure that's crystal clear in case someone's watching this video later. I didn't want people to think it meant that, you know, it's a free for all or something like that. So just so that's crystal clear. So we have a couple extra seconds here.
Yeah, definitely have some time left over. Thanks for that clarification. And then the next question, will just explaining more the strategic investment plan. What is it? Why does it matter? How does it fit into the DRI process? And Leslie, it looks like, is going to take that question.
Sure, I'll take it. So the strategic investment plan is the final project of the DRI effort. The plan builds on the community's DRI application and other past planning efforts to present a vision for downtown revitalization, goals, and implementation strategies. The plan contains the final slate of projects recommended by the LPC for DRI funding. In addition to these projects, the LPC may also highlight other projects that are important for downtown revitalization, but not recommended for DRI funding. Being included in this plan shows that the local planning committee has discussed these projects as beneficial to long-term revitalization, and that the information gathered during the DRI planning process can set these projects up to apply for other grant funding in the future. Sorry, I heard some feedback there. So I don't know if anybody else wanted to add anything, but that's pretty much a summary of the strategic investment plan.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Leslie. We have a question in our frequently asked questions about the revolving grant and loan fund. How can a project apply for the revolving grant and loan fund? And Jackie, if you want to speak to that, and then pass it to Fred or Mayor Tischler from the village.
Sure, I will start with that from this point in the DRI process. If a project is recommended, you know, if this project, which is the Rebuild Downtown Potsdam project, which is the revolving loan and grant fund project, is recommended by the LPC in the final slate of projects, and ultimately selected by the state for DRI funding, the village will then develop guidelines for potential applicants to apply for this funding. So that fund will be something that will be administered by the village and can be tailored to the village's needs. And then, so the timeline of that is a little uncertain at this point, but that's really kind of what happens. I don't know if Fred wanted to add anything in terms of thoughts from the village, you know, if and when this were to be selected for DRI funding.
So if it is selected for DRI funding, the plan would be to roll it out the same way that we would roll out a New York Main Street project, for example. You know, public information meeting, and then put out a request for proposals. Be a window of time that people would have to respond. But we'd be looking at several different activities, building renovations, which are pretty simple and straightforward. Assistance for people who are just starting in business and maybe don't need a $50,000 loan, but need a $5,000 loan for a POS system or signage or furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. Very small purchases. Also, as Barbara noted, COVID-19 capital expenditures. So if people need to put in protective equipment or barriers for wait staff or employees in food service operations, outside dining facilities, those types of things. And then also for rental assistance to help get some of the buildings downtown that are currently vacant filled by new commercial tenants.
We had another question about the river walk, which we may need the map for. I guess the question is about the orange section in the Sandstone Drive Bridge. And I guess if you just want to speak through that, we weren't quite sure. This question was from Lee Van de Water. And Lee, if you want to type in a clarifying question of what you meant more, we can just kind of walk through the orange section of the trail as it pertains to the Sandstone Drive Bridge, and maybe just talk about what the crossing would look like. And then if there is anything specifically that you would like to know, just type it in the chat or the questions box, and we'll return back to that.
Sure. Erica, I can try and do a high level, and then, yeah, Lee, if you have any clarification, be happy to help address that. So I think that the section that he's looking for is between, letters B and C. So ultimately, there is this yellow dotted line, which is the proposed shared use path, and then that would connect in with sidewalk existing. And so at this point, a cyclist would either get off and walk their bike on the sidewalk or become part of the traffic. And so, I'm not sure what the question is here, but again, trying to connect to existing as much as possible.
And I think you answered it. He responded to us as you were talking and said that he was asking about the bike lanes. So that point of either going with the traffic or walking it on the sidewalk, I think was his, yeah. And he was just wanting to make sure that we fully answered the question about bike access on the Riverwalk Trail.
Sure, and Sarah Stark did mention, I'll just add one more thing, a feature that was built into the area of the Riverwalk Trail is the stairwell, right where the the green dotted line and the proposed shared use path on Sandstone come together, and that does include a bike rail. So if folks are biking on the shared use path, they can get off their bike and bring it down the stair without having to carry it, and then access the lower part of the Riverwalk right on the river.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jackie. That's good to know too. So we had a prompt question about the selection process. And the question is, how does the state determine which projects get selected? So does one of our state representatives want to tackle that? Steve, Barbara, Leslie, or Mary?
Sure, I can take that. So there's a thorough evaluation process conducted by multiple state agencies for every DRI project that's recommended by the local planning committee.
Okay, great. So that, I think, concludes the questions that have come in from the audience. Thank you so much, everyone. Oh, let's see here. Okay, we'll go through a couple more prompt questions just to buy a little more time in case anyone thinks of anything. So again, you can ask questions on, if you're joining late, you can ask us questions on the question feature of GoToWebinar. And meanwhile, we'll ask a couple more questions, but we are wrapping it up soon. So, so the next question is about the status of the project list. Is the current list final? Where is it in its, you know, evolution?
I can respond to that. The projects presented in the storefront and online galleries represent the draft slate of projects for DRI recommendation. And the final slate of projects will be voted on at a future LPC meeting, which at this point is next Wednesday, the 9th.
Great. And our next question is, oh, somebody just wants to speak about, we've talked about this at a couple points throughout the presentation tonight, but just to remind people that are attending about public feedback and how it's being considered throughout this process. Jackie, would you like to take that question? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I can start, and then I might ask Sarah Stark as I wrap up this question to be able to maybe share with all of you listening where we are, what sort of responses we've gotten so far, at least in terms of views in the online gallery and the number of comments received so far. But yes, the public feedback is considered by the LPC throughout the entire DRI process. It is one of several factors that are taken into consideration for that slate of projects. And I did mention previously that public feedback will be available for everybody to see on the project website at potsdamdri.com. Sarah, do you want to give everybody an update of the traffic we have had in the online gallery since Friday?
Absolutely. So we, of course, have been tracking all the visits to the online project gallery. And as of about 6 p.m. today, we're up to over 700 views of the online project gallery. And to this date, we've received over 90 different comments from the public through our feedback form on the project website, as well as directly through our project email. So it's quite a bit of information that's coming in from the public, and it's really exciting. So as Jackie said, all of this information will be available to the LPC, and we will be summarizing the public feedback at our next LPC meeting.
And yeah, it might be good to talk about, just remind people of where the online gallery storefronts are, Sarah, and talk about the different ways that people can engage. I know that, you know, we have the project website, and there's different opportunities that people have up until the point where the DRI process concludes with the LPC. So, Sarah, do you want to talk about that process generally?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the main hub, if you will, to find out about the public engagement activities is our project website at potsdamdri.com. And from this website, you can get a link to the online project gallery, which has all the latest information about the proposed projects, the current proposed projects. If you aren't maybe comfortable with an online platform, you're more than welcome to go visit some of our storefront galleries, which have been posted throughout the downtown. So you can see these at Jernabi Coffee, as well as the Potsdam Chamber of Commerce. So these will be posters that are presented on the storefronts, and the idea is for people to be able to view these and read some of the project information while safely social distancing. Another option for people, if they would like some hard copy materials, is they can visit the Village Hall at 2 Park Street in order to obtain hard copy materials as well as comment forms. So as far as public feedback, there is a section on our project website under feedback for you to post any of your comments or questions. Or again, if you feel more comfortable, you're welcome to pick up a comment form available at Village Hall and fill that out right there and hand it right in at Village Hall. And we'll take those comments in, we'll document them, and we'll make sure that they're supplied to the LPC.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So we are going to conclude our presentation right now. In addition to all of the wonderful ways that you can engage through the avenues that Sarah just discussed, we will also be posting the recording of this webinar, and there will be a report of the Q&A posted on the website soon, within the upcoming week. And yeah, there's a lot of ways to stay engaged and informed about the process. So on behalf of the Potsdam DRI, we are concluding the presentation. I'd like to thank this opportunity to all our panelists tonight, all of the participants that attended, and reminder that the website is potsdamdri.com. So there's all of this information on the website. If you have any questions that you think of after this presentation, feel free to leave them there on the website in the feedback page. And yeah, on behalf of the project team, thank you so much for everyone that attended, and stay well and have a wonderful evening. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.